Chavre, z.א-z.b Chagiga. We're going to continue where we left off. I hope that I do justice for the Monday night Shiur. This is the first. I don't know if I should do justice on purpose or not, because then maybe Shali will take it, want to leave more often, basically. But we'll try to do our best. We left off in the Gemara talking about a story about what type of carbon it was, and the nafkamina halacha was if it's an oila or shlomim, if it goes on the mizbeach or not. We ended off with teku. And now the Gemara is going to start discussing another concept in bringing carbon v'chulu v'chulu. Anyway, Dr. Gemara. Tana Rabbanon. It says in a Bryson, Mesech Peya. Vavam Bey is the last line. Tana Rabbanon state in a Bryson Peya. Elu dvarim she'en lahem shiur. We say this every morning by davening. Elu dvarim she'en lahem shiur. These are the things that do not have a shiur. There's no limitations. HaPeya, the Peya, when a farmer picks his field, he could leave one stalk, or he can take one stalk and leave everything else for peya. There's no minimum and no maximum for the type of peya that he leaves, as long as he leaves at least one sheaf of wheat. Va'bikurim, and bikurim is the same thing, the first fruit. When you bring it to the Beis Hamikdash, there's no shiur. You can bring the biggest basket, the smallest basket, everything you have. Again, there's nothing. V'harayin, and we're going to start off and taichayin. The v'harayin is oilas re'iyah. When a person goes to the Beis Hamikdash for the shalish regalim, he has to bring a carbon. So we're going to start off in taichayin as this is the oilas re'iyah. And that there's no shiur, and we're going to discuss the concept of what is this shiur or that we're talking about. Are we talking about quantity or quality type of thing? Gvilas chasadim and gvilas chasadim, v'Talmud Torah and Talmud Torah, all of these do not have a shiur. Talmud Torah is very interesting. It also it depends on the type of person you are. If you're in business, if you're learning, what is considered ein lahem shiur v'chulu v'chulu. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, and we're going to have Rabbi Yochanan with Reish Lakish throughout this Amud, going back and forth, trying to understand this concept of v'harayin. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Kisvurim anu, we had a thought. We had a thought to say, loymer that harayin ein loyim shir lemaila, that the concept of ein loyim shir, where it says in the Brisa in Peya that harayin ein loyim shir is lemaila. There's no maximum, meaning you could bring as many, or it could be costing as much as it's needed. Avol yesh l'shir lamata, but there is a minimum, and according to Beis Hillel, the minimum is a ma'ah. For oila and for a shlomim, it would be a 2 ma. Ma is calculated about 75 cents today, and 2 ma is about $1.50 v'chulu, something like that. So that would
first min and max.
That was the first min. Potentially max was unlimited, but yeah, correct. Potentially,
it's more expensive to get there.
It's more expensive to get there. Well, by foot years ago, maybe, but correct. But yeah, so l'chayra, that the thought was that there is no maximum for the carbon oilas re'iyah, but there is a minimum of what the value should be. Ad sheba Rabbi Ishia, Berebi, until Rabbi Ishia came and told us and explained to us that what v'limid, and he taught us haroyin ein lo yishir loy lamata v'loy lamayla v'loy lamata, that the haroyin, that there is no shear on the value, not the maximum and not the minimum. Aber avol chachamim aimrim, the chachamim said, that Rabbi Beis Hillel said hariyah ma'a kesef v'chagiga shtei kesef, that the oilas re'iyah is taka, the minimum is a ma'ah, and the oilas shlamim, the carbon chagiga for the yontiv, is going to be two ma'ah kesef, and that's how it's accepted today, in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. Now we're going
to the ratio. What does it mean, little mata? At a certain point, you can't bring a carbon for too little money.
A pruta. He says that it could be a shava pruta as long as it has some sort of value.
Does it have to be an animal?
That's going to be part of the discussion soon. But l'chayra, yes.
So if you buy an animal for half a penny, you got a good deal, and you can bring it up for
Correct, according to the Baishia. But according to the Chachamim, which is undernomen as the halacha, that it has to be a minimum of at least one ma value. Now we're going to try to go into the discussion of the concept of haroyan. What is it? Is it oilas? In the oilas re'iyah, there could be two concepts. Is it the value of the carbon? Is there a minimum or a maximum? Or is it the quantity? Is it every single time that you walk and go to the base of Mikdash, do you have to potentially bring a carbon? So Rabbi Yochanan says, that when you come and show your face, the first time that you have to show your face in the Azara, that's when you have to bring a carbon. That's when you're mechuyev for oilas re'iyah, and you bring the carbon. But Reish Lakish says, Riyas panim b'karban, be'ikir haregel, Riyas panim b'karban, that when you come and you show yourself, no matter when you show yourself in the Azara, you're mechuyev to bring a carbon. You come for the morning, you come for Shachris, you come for Mincha, for Ma'ariv, L'chayra, according to Reish Lakish, you have to bring another carbon. The Ikar Regel, so L'chayra, the Machlekes would be, are you mechuyev to bring a carbon every single time you walk into the Beis HaMikdash, or is that one time you brought the carbon, so you fulfilled your obligation, and now that you fulfilled your obligation, you're able to you come and go, so to speak, to the Beis HaMikdash. Be'ikar regel kula alma.
In the course of one day?
In the course of one day, or in the course of the whole Yontif. Yontif is 7-8 days. So every day that you're going to come back to the Azara, do you have to bring another carbon or not? So l'chayda, that's the machlekes. So Zok the Gemara and Emphas the Gemara, Kula alma loy pligi, deriyas panim b'karbon. No, side of Yochanan and side of Shlakish are not arguing that deriyas panim b'karbon, that when you come to the Beis HaMikdash, you have to bring a carbon. Ki pligi, when are they arguing? B'shayim ha'saregel, when the other days of the regel, meaning the first time you show up, everyone says for sure you have to bring the carbon. But if Yontif starts, let's say on a Monday, you come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, do you have to bring a carbon or not? When anyone is going, both side of Yochanan and side of Shlakish are going to say, if this Chevraman comes to the Beis HaMikdash on Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday, and every single day he does bring a carbon with him, that they take it from him. Ki pligi, when do they argue? If he comes and he doesn't bring the carbon. So the first iteration of the machlekes would be that if the Chevraman's going to come to the Beis HaMikdash with a carbon, they'll take it, no problem. If he doesn't come, that's the big problem. The Rabbi Yochanan says, Riyas panim ba'azara, that coming to the Azara, the chol emas da'asi, lo yitzarech la'asui, that as long as you're coming to the Beis HaMikdash, you don't have to bring the carbon. But Reish Lakish says, Ra'isa panim b'karban, the chol emas da'asi, tzarech la'asui, that every single time you're going to come to the Beis HaMikdash, you have to bring the carbon. Reish Lakish says, no, the first time you taka, everyone says you have to. And if you're going to bring it on all the other days, no problem. But the days after, that's when they're arguing. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you don't have to. If the guy doesn't bring, not a problem. But if he does bring, and Reish Lakish says, no, you have to bring if you're coming. So now, Reish Lakish asks a question on Rabbi Yochanan's Shita, where he says that you're only mechuyev to bring a carbon the first time that you come to the Beis HaMikdash. Frag the v'lo yiro panay reikam, so state in the pasuk v'lo yiro panay reikam. Es hachag amatzes tishma shivas yom techa amatzes kasher tzivisicha lemoyed chodesh aviv ki vayatzasim mitzrayim v'lo yiro panay reikam. The pasuk says clearly that when you show, you shouldn't show yourself empty-handed. So the Chayre Reish Lakish is saying from this pasuk we see that every time you show your face, the Chayre you should come with a carbon. It's like the story with the grandmother tells the granddaughter, "Oh, you're coming to visit? I just moved. When you come into the building, you're going to use your elbow and you're going to push the elevator button." And when you come to the door after you get out of the elbow, you're going to use your shoulder and you're going to knock on the door. He says, Bobby, what kind of strange instructions is that? He says, what do you mean? I don't expect you to come empty-handed. Your hands are going to be full. So when you come to visit someone, your hands are going to be full. So the same thing, l'chayre, Rish Lakish is saying that we learn from the pasuk, v'lo yiro panai reikam, that every single time you're going to come to the base of Mikdash, you got to come with a carbon. This particular pasuk is as Chaga Matzis Tishma Shivas Yom Techa Matzis Kasher Tzivitzicha L'Moyed Chay the Shavit Kivay Yitzosim Mitzayim Lo Yiro Panayim. We're going to go into Shalosh Pam soon, but this Rabbi Shlakish is taking from the blank statement of Lo Yiro Panayim that you got to, every time you show your face, you got to bring a carbon. Amar Lei, so Rabbi Yochanan answers, you're right, Be'ikar Regel, that pasuk is referring to the first time you come to the Beis HaMikdash when you're fulfilling your obligation of Aliyah L'Regel. So then you have to bring a carbon. But after that, you don't have to.
Do you want to come the first day or any time
the first time you show your face to the Beis HaMikdash, you have to bring with it a carbon. Because Lo Yira Panai Reikam. If you're going to become the second day or third day Yontif, we're going to get into the next Mishnah discusses Taka. If it's a carbon that you're mechuyev or not mechuyev, are you allowed to do it on Shabbos or not on Shabbos? If it's a oila, but that will be later.
Mendy, they didn't have a Masarti from the Mishkan?
To do what?
I'm saying,
if every single time this is
it would seem seemingly this
certain things were Masarti, but that's part of what the Gemara is. We're coming to discuss back and forth of what potentially the halacha would be in certain instances and situations.
But it wasn't that much earlier that there was the Mishkan. They didn't know
there was no Aliyah L'Regel.
Why not? Of course they had the Mishkan in Shiloh. It was 400. There was Ayla. Sure, they went. What do you mean? The Ma'aso of Elkanah and Chana with Shmuel and Avi was Ayla Regel. That's what the story was.
Only when they came into Israel, not in the middle.
No. The mitzvah was the Aliyah L'Regel. It only was when they were miyased there to Israel.
I'm saying, so in Shiloh there must have been...
There was Aliyah L'Regel, but this is a question back and forth.
Okay.
The pasuk says, "V'lo yiro panai rekom bizvachim ato imer bizvachim oyena ala ba'efos." The chayre, you asked the shaila, do you have to bring is it food or flesh? So we say that the chayre, the pasuk is telling us v'lo yiro panai rekom is talking about that you have to bring zvachim. A zevach denotes something that was shechted. Something that was shechted is a behemoth, and not. And maybe you could do a bird or menaches, which is flour and oil, and a bird is malika, so it doesn't fall in the category of zvicha, of zevach. That it's logical to say that taket's zvachim, and you have to bring something that you have to shecht. Nemra Chagiga lehedyet, v'nemra re'iyah legavoya. It says by the carbon Chagiga, by a hedyet, by a regular person, by the common folk, v'nemra re'iyah legavoya by the Eibishter. Ma Chagiga ha'amura lehedyet zvachim, just like Chagiga, which is referring to the hedyet, that Chagiga, carbon Chagiga is talking about a zevach. You have to bring a carbon zevach. So too, when you're going to bring the carbon that you're obligated to bring to the Eibishter, it also has to be a zevach. And this carbon that you're bringing, is it a oila or is it a shlamim? And it's minigea, because an oila is fully burnt on the Beis HaMikdash, and a shlamim is consumed with the kohanim and the person that gives it, and part of it is burnt. V'dinu, it's also logical to say nemra that what chagiga lehedyet v'nemra re'iyah legavoya, that when you the chagiga by hedyet, and it says re'iyah when you come to the Beis HaMikdash, you're coming to the Eibishter. Ma chagiga ha'amur lehedyet b'ro'iloi af re'iyah ha'amur legavoya b'ro'iloi, something that is shayach that to bring as a carbon. So you have to bring a carbon when you're coming to the Eibishter. And it's also, this is also logical, that you're going to come and you're going to have, maybe we should say that the carbon that you're bringing, the oila, for the carbon for the Eibishter, the oila zediyah, maybe it should be a shlamim, because your table should be full of food, and the Eibishter, your Rebbe's table should be empty. So whatever you're going to do for yourself should be the same for the Eibishter. So it should be with the Zevach. Amar lei. So he answers, so the Reish Lakish is coming at him with all of these different tinus and potentially to say reasons why every single time the person will come to the Beis HaMikdash, he has to bring something, because whether he can't, when the Eibishter is seeing him and he's seeing the Eibishter, they have to have the same carbon. And when the Eibishter is seeing him back and forth with the Zevach, so we have to say that according to the Reish Lakish, it's a proof to the Reish Lakish to say that he has to bring a carbon every time he shows up to the Beis HaMikdash. So Rabbi Yochanan answers, Be'ikar regel, that you're talking right. All of these things that you're bringing me proof to say that this Chaverman has to bring a carbon, it's all on that first time he shows up. And when he shows up the first time, he has to bring a carbon. And he has to bring it for the Eibishter.
What does it mean, B'ro'i loy? Does that mean that he gets to eat some of it?
Yeah, something that's for him, that if you're not going to let the Eibishter, if you're not going to give something equivalent to the Eibishter, then why are you not, then you have to bring, or you shouldn't bring, that's according to Reish Lakish, you're bringing the equivalent of what you're bringing to the Eibishter, or what you're bringing to yourself, you should bring to the Eibishter. Esvei weiter noch a Shaila, Reish Lakish asks on Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda says, Sholosh regalim b'shana, Nitztavu Yisrael Ales Beregel, that 3 times a year we are commanded to go up to the Beis Hamikdash, the Oilas Beriyas Regel, B'Chag HaMatzos, B'Chag HaShavuos, B'Chag HaTzukos. Ve'ein niroyin chatzoyin, and we don't see half. We're going to invite in the Gemara. We're going to explain what this means. Chatzoyin half. Mishum shenemar, because what does it say? It says Kol Zechurcha. All of the men, all of the male folk have to go up to the Beis Hamikdash. Ve'ein nidin rekonim. And you can't show yourself empty-handed. Mishum shenemar, because it says, there's a brayso that Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda says, v'lo yero panai rekam. So this is another proof to Reish Lakish to say that every single time you're going to show up to the Beis Hamikdash, you have to bring with you a carbon. Amar lei, so he answers, Rabbi Yochanan answers Reish Lakish, be'ikar regel. Also fine and good. Everything is good. But this is referring to that you can't show up empty-handed the first time you show up to the Beis Hamikdash, and you have to bring with your carbon.
So Be'ikar regel is always considered the first day?
Be'ikar regel is the first time you show yourself. Now the tables are going to turn. It's supposed to be beyond Tavrishin is when everyone's supposed to be there, but it's whenever you get there. Now the tables are going to turn. Rabbi Yochanan is going to turn and ask Shilas on Reish Lakish. Esvei Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan asks a Shilas to Reish Lakish. It says Yireh and Yireh Yud Reish Aleph Hey could be read in both ways, to see and be seen. Ma'ani bechinam. Just like I'm coming bechinam for free, empty-handed, the Eibishter is telling, the Eibishter is coming to the Beis Hamikdash to see us, and he's not, the Eibishter is not coming with a carbon or not coming with something to give us. Af atam bechinam, so to you, my Yidden that are coming to see me, are bechinam.
Very mundane.
Elo, but kol hecha the asi v'lo yaisi, but whoever comes, kol hecha the asi v'lo yaisi, but whoever comes to the Beis Hamikdash and Taka doesn't have the kula alma loy pligi, the aisle that he could come, o mischaze benofik, and he could. Mischaze v'nafik, you can see, yeah, correct. No, kol elu the aisle v'mischaze v'nafik. Keep pligi. When are they arguing? The asa v'aisi, that he came and he brought with him a carbon. So what's the machlekes? Rabbi Yochanan the Amar the Riyas Panim Ba'Zara. Rabbi Yochanan in the beginning in his first statement was Riyas Panim Ba'Zara. So Riyas Panim who the ein lo shir. The Riyas Panim who that there's no shir of how many times you could come. And there's no shear of riyah. But halakarbon. But when, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're going to bring a carbon, yesh la shear, there is a shear, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's the first time. But Reish Lakish Amar, Rabbi Yas Panim beCarbon. But Reish Lakish who says that he is panim bekarban. That filo karban nami ein shear. That even the karban itself doesn't have a shear. So you could bring as many karbanos as you want, and will all be accepted. And what's the chiddush according to the Reish Lakish is you're not over on Baal Tosef. As long as if you're coming to the Beis Hamikdash every single day, you can bring another karban, and you won't be over the Baal Tosef. But Rabbi Yochanan says no, we won't even accept it, and you could only bring that one karban.
Ella is like an answer on the Isvei. We're going away from the Isvei Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Meaning Rabbi Yochanan shout to Reish Lakish.
Yeah. Sorry, I take it back. So that Ella kol hecha de aser v'lo yaisi the kol amalei pligi de ayol mischaziv enofik is basically this keta that we just learned was normally the Gemara is written based off of the give and take, the machlokes between the chachamim that are going back and forth. But the Gemara over here that we just learned was written up by the authors of the Gemara, Ravina and Rav Ashi, based on what they assumed would have been the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Now the Gemara is saying, no, this is actually what the machlokes between the Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish is, that the Iyas Panim Bazara is, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is Ein Lo Shir. When does he say is a Shir is bringing a karban? You could only bring one karban right in the beginning. And Reish Lakish says, the Iyas Panim, the karban, you could bring as many karbanis as you want whenever you come to the Beis Hamikdash.
Bring as many, or you have to bring? You have to bring each time you come. Don't they all say that each time you come, you can bring? Can we say that? Everybody said that?
No, that was the beginning. We're going to go back to say that according to Rabbi Yochanan, he's saying that l'chayda you're over on Baal Tosef. If you're going to bring more, you only bring one, and you can come as many times as you want. It's not that you could only come once and you can't come again because you could only bring one karban. According to Rabbi Yochanan, he said you could come as many times as you want. The karban is the first time. And Reish Lakish says you could bring. That what's the shear? You could, according to Rabbi Yochanan, Ein Lam Shir is you could come whatever you want, as many times as you want. According to Reish Lakish is you could bring as many karbanos as you want. Rabbi Yochanan to Reish Lakish. That the pasuk in Mishlei Pen basically the pasuk is saying that you should be careful and you shouldn't be too accustomed to coming because then I might hate you. So you have to be careful of how many times you show yourself. You're going to go to your friend's house. If you come every single day, he might start not liking you. If you come every once in a while, then he's going to value the time that you come. So, according to this, it's a proof to Rabbi Yochanan that you should limit the time that you're coming and limit the time that you're bringing karbanis to the Eibishter, because you might do the opposite. The pasuk is talking about that you should refrain from being accustomed to coming to the Eibishter. It's becoming with the Eibishter with chatois and hashamis, meaning you're doing something no good and you're coming constantly with an oshim and a chatos. That's what the pasuk is referring to. That you shouldn't come like that. So, but to come to bring an oila or a shlabim, who says that lavdafka? Because the Reb Levi, like we see that the taish of this pasuk is like the Reb Levi, the Reb Levi Rami Ksiv Haikar Agla Bebeis Reachav Ksiv Abba Beischa Ba'olos. Avay Beischa Ba'olos. That Ashalem L'chan Nidarai, that the Reb Levi learns that Yutaka could come for an oilo, you can bring as many times as you want. But for a chatas and an ashram, taki, you have to hold yourself back and you have to be careful. And that's what you should not come to the Beis Hamikdash.
Why is that a bad thing?
What, to come with a chatas and an ashram? If you come very often, that means you're not a good person.
Chatos means...
A chatas is an avera. You're doing things that yeah.
I'm doing tshuva.
Like kashin, kam bechatois, vashamis, kam ba'elis l'shlomim. That one pasuk is taka referring to chatas and ashamis, and the other pasuk is talking about eilis and shlomim, which is something that's benefiting to that's pleasant and pleasurable to the Eibush. Kashuemer of a beischa ba'eilis ashalim l'cha nedarai harei eilis v'shlomim emar. So what do I see from this pasuk that we tried to tie chain? That taka azoi, that the pasuk is referring to that you shouldn't accustom yourself of coming to the Eibishter is talking about an Osham and a Chatas. Chatos and Asham is that you should behave, that you won't have to. But on the other hand, an Oila and an Osham, you could. So l'chayra that according to Reish Lakish, he holds that you could bring as many times as you want an Oila. You could come to the base of Mikdash, but Rabbi Yochanan says that the Indian of Ein Lam Shir is the one time that you come, but you can show your face as many times as you want throughout the Yontif.
His reason is basic calculation.
Correct. So Rabbi Yosef Lemema, we said before that Palga, give me a second. You can't show yourself in half measures or half groups or whatever. Now we're going to try to figure out what the Gemara meant by saying that. So Rabbi Yosef thought to say, Man the Islay Asara Banim. If you have a chaverman that has 10 children, that he shouldn't one day come with his Cooper Mini with 5 kids and the next day with 5 kids and split it up.
You were saying.
Yeah.
No, it's on the chat.
That's what it means, that he has to come, everyone together has to come Oila Regel. Amalei Abaye says, the Pshita he. Why do I need this pasuk to tell me that we can't do half measures? I would have known that you have to come automatically. Mashvis lu poishim, v'hai minayu mashvis lahu zarizin. These are you because maybe you're going to think that some of these people are sinners, or the other ones are going more quickly to be oila regel. Ella krol mai asa. So why do we have?
Meaning the kids.
Yeah, those 4 kids, correct? Because they're going to turn into, if they don't come, they're going to go whatever. Yeah. So Abaye says no. That the pasuk we learn according to the Achedim. What does Achedim say? The Tanya Achedim. He says Hamekametz v'Ametzaref v'Nechoishes, someone that's a copper miner, someone that mines copper, is a very, very dirty and smelly occupation. V'Abursi, and a tanner. And those that are work with tanning leather and hides is also one of the most disgusting and smelliest occupations of that time. So then, Peturim in Ariyah, they are potter from coming up to be Oile Regel Shnemar Kol Zechorcha. It says in the pasuk Kol Zechorcha that everyone has to be able, all the men have to come together. Misha Yochel Lalois Im Kol Zechorcha, those that could all come together with the men. Yetzu Elu She'en Yochel Lalois Im Kol Zechorcha. It excludes all those that cannot come, which is all those people that are going to make everyone else uncomfortable with their terrible how would you say, occupations that cause them to be a little bit unfit or unclean. But they can't even make an alil regel by themselves the next day. They have to all come together. Every potential occupation, whatever it is, and they all have to come together to be able to be alil regel together because it says kol zechorcha together.
That's what it means in Nir Chatzoyin.
Yeah, Chatzoyin, you can't have him half. It has to be half measure in terms of half the Yidden coming today, half the Yidden coming tomorrow, or half the Yidden coming the following day. They all have to come together, and the mitzvah is they have to come to the first. They have to come to the beginning of Yontif. Yeah. Go a little more. Zok the Mishnah, Oilos b'moyed bo'is min hachulin. The Mishnah says that when you bring and carbon oila, b'moyed, the first thought would be to tie shine that this is talking about chol hamoyed. It comes from chulin. Chulin is someone has a field and he has to take trumas and maisers. He takes off truma, and then he takes off meiser, and then he takes off meiser sheni on year 1, 2, 4, and 5. he takes off Meiser Sheni. Now, what does he do with Meiser Sheni? He has a tremendous amount of fruit. He's not going to schlep it himself. He's paid the fruit, and he has money, and he goes to Yerushalayim, and now he could be paid or re-redeem the money to food. There's certain types of food that he's going to be able to redeem it, but it has to be redeemed for food and in Yerushalayim. That is not chulin. That money that he exchanged for the peiros, once he set aside Meiser Sheni, that Meiser Sheni becomes Kodesh. The minute he exchanged it for cash, and it has to be cash, it cannot be for other fruit. The minute he exchanges it for cash, the cash becomes Kodesh now. It goes to Yerushalayim, he takes the cash, and he exchanges it back for food, that food becomes Kodesh. So the Mishnah says, Oilos b'moyed bois min hachulin. So if you're going to come to Yerushalayim and you have hundreds or thousands of dollars on you that are Kodesh, Meiser Sheni, you cannot buy carbon oila and bring it to the Beis Hamikdash with that money. It's got to come from your own private stash of chulin. Vashlomim min hameiser, but shlomim, carbon shlomim, can be purchased from Meiser Sheni. The Mishnah says, Yontiv Edishin Shal Pesach, Beishamai, the first day of Pesach, Beishamai says, Min HaChulin, that the carbon Chagiga of Pesach is from Chulin. Beisila Leimin, Min HaMeiser, Beisila says that it could come from Meiser, the Meiser money that you have, which is Kaddish.
Not Sukkot, not Shavuos.
That they're throwing in kind of like Pesach. Why is Pesach different? Because Pesach, you have the carbon Pesach and you have the carbon Chagiga before Pesach. But it's telling you that you have to do with, you could take it from Meiser. Yisrael yotzin yidei charvasam b'nedarim u'nedaves u'b'meiser b'hemav. That a Yisrael could be yotze with a his choiv of nedarim and nedaves b'meiser. That if a Yisrael he took upon himself a neder or a nadava, for a neder is harei alai, and a nadava is harei zu, then you could potentially, you could be yoitze your chiyuv of whatever you obligated yourself, b'meiser, behema, and the kohanim could use from their received kodesh proceeds, they could do korban chatois, va'ashamois, ubebechor, ubechoza, v'shoik, avaloi v'oifos, v'loi b'menochos, but they can't redeem any korban that's with an oif or by a mincha. So the Yidden, so based on Ibn Ufik, the Mishnah is telling us that what is and the difference, it's any of the karbanos that are being partaken of the Yid, the Yisrael and the Kohen. If they partake a part of the carbon, then l'chayra, based on this Mishnah, they could use Meiser Sheni. But if it's a carbon that kol kulei is nisraf on the Mizbeach, if everything gets totally burnt on the Mizbeach, then they cannot use any Meiser. It has to come from their chul and their private money. Ela oilis b'mayid, who the boys menachulin. The Gemara, the Mishnah says that oilis b'mayid boys menachulin. Frag the Gemara, Ela oilis b'mayid, who the boys menachulin habi yomtov min ha'meiser, but l'chayra yomtov should come from a meiser amai. But on yomtov, you're telling me the fact that the Mishnah is using the lashon of oilis b'mayid, I could potentially infer that if I'm bringing a carbon oila on Yontif, it could come from Meiser. Because it says oilas b'mayid. The oila on Chol HaMoed has to come from Chulin, but if it's an oila on Yontif, it could come from Meiser. L'chayra. How could you say that? How could you potentially have a Mishnah that you could infer from the Mishnah to say that on Yontif an oila is coming from a Meiser? Why can't you say that? Because there's a klal gadol, davar shebechayva he, and v'chol davar shebechayva einay ba ela min hachulin. Something that a person is obligated to bring cannot come from Meiser, it has to come from Chulin. And every person that's oila regel has to bring an oila zriya it has a chiyuv for that. So davar shebechayva cannot come from chulin. It can't come from Meiser. It has to come from Chulin. So how could the Mishnah be worded in a way that we could infer that the Yontif is okay to get from Meiser? If you want to potentially say that taka we're going to differentiate between Chol HaMoed and Yontif, that oilus that on Chol HaMoed you taka can't, but on Yontif you can. Come on, who's that going to be? According to me, Beis Shammai, because Beis Shammai says in the Mishnah. Beis Shammai says in the Mishnah when it comes Beis Shammai minachulin that Yontif that the Shlomim and the Yontif Rishon Shel Pesach could come from the Meiser, but Beis Hillel says it has to come from Chulin. So this would potentially infer that it's coming that this is according to Beis Shammai. That not, like we said, Beis Shammai says Mevi'in Shlomim, you could bring a Shlomim Vein Soimchen Aleim, but you're not allowed. Part of bringing a korban to the Beis Hamikdash is the kohen and the person that's bringing it puts their hands on the korban, and that's part of the process of bringing the korban. So according to this, if you're going to the Beis Shammai has a brisa that he says Mevin Shlomim Vein Soimchen Alein Avaloi Oilos. You can bring a Shlomim from Meiser, but you're not allowed to be Soimech, but you're not allowed to bring an Oila. Beis Hillel says Mevin Shlomim Ve'oilos Ve'Soimchen Aleim. And your take can be Soimech on the behema when you're bringing it according to Beis Shammai. So the Mishnah doesn't make sense. The way the Mishnah is laid out or written, it doesn't make sense to say that we're differentiating between Chol HaMoed and Yontif and the difference between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. So then the Gemara has to say, what do we see? Chesure Mechsera. Oh, here. That we're missing some parts of the Mishnah that therefore it is not understood. That what? Oiles nedarim v'nedavos b'moyed bois u'b'yontiv einan bois. That you can bring an oila and an adava. An oila, a neder, and an adava, b'moyed on Chol HaMoed, you can bring it. U'b'yontiv einan bois, you cannot bring it. V'oilas re'iyah, but so l'chayre, you can bring an oila and Chol HaMoed, but you're not allowed to bring an oila on Yontif. But an oilas re'iyah, because there's a separate mitzvah for Eilas Re'iyah, but Afilu B'Yontif could come also. You can bring it also on Yontif. Because Shehi Ba, and when you bring it, Einei Ba Ela Min HaChulin, you could only bring these types of karbanos from the Chulin. So we modified how we're wording the Mishnah. And based on the new wording of the Mishnah, it makes a lot more sense because it's including Yontif and Chol HaMoed, and it's differentiating the difference between an Oila, a Neder, and a Dava between Chol HaMoed and Yontif. V'Shalmei Simcha, and Shalmei Simcha, which is an extra shlamim that is not an oila, but it's halfway burnt and everyone could eat. Boyin af min meiser could come even also a meiser. V'chagigas yontif, which is the korban chagiga, which is also a shlamim. Chagigas yontif harishon shel Pesach. The chagigas yontif harishon shel Pesach. Beis Shammai yomrim. This is where Beis Shammai says min achulin, that this korban has to come from chulin. And Beis Hillel yomrim min meiser, and Beis Hillel says this could come from meiser. And we could also learn to add to our proof of the new lashon of the Mishnah. Tanya nami hachi oiles nedarim and nedavis b'moyed boys b'yontav einan boys. That nedarim and nedavai oiles nedarim and nedavais you can bring on a chol hamoed, but yontav you can't bring. V'oilas re'iyah ba afilu b'yontif, and oilas re'iyah could come even on yontif. Ukashihi ba, and when the oilas re'iyah does come, einay ba ela min achulin, it only comes from chulin. because it's a davar that shebachayva, and kol davar shebachayva has to come from a chulin, and therefore you're not allowed to bring it from meiser. V'shalmei simcha, but shalmei simcha bayin af min meiser comes also from meiser v'chagigas yontif, and the carbon chagiga of yontif v'rishon shal pesach. Beishamai yomrim min chulin. Beishamai says it comes. You can bring it from chulin. Ubeisila yomrim min ha meiser. And Beisila says min ha-meiser, you can bring it from meiser. So we see from here,
you have to bring it from chulin.
Beishamai says that the correct, because it's a davar shebechayva, Beishamai is saying that this particular, no, but it's different because the chayra, this is a carbon that is not a full oila that gets put only on the mizbeach to burn. The kohen and the Yisrael partakes of this particular carbon. Even so, according to Beishamai, he says that it has to come from chulin. Beis Hillel says because we are partaking of this particular carbon, even though it's a chayva, but because we are partaking and we're not burning the whole carbon on the mizbeach, therefore you could take it from meiser sheni money, but any other carbon, the carbon oila, or has to be from chulin because it's a chayva, and not only that, we cannot bring the carbon oila. We cannot bring a carbon oila on yontif. We could only bring it on chol hamoed. The only carbon oila that we can bring on yontif is the carbon that we are obligated to, which is the carbon oila siriyah.